Yes, people, welcome back to the channel. It's Guna to Guna, it's 12th man, and it's one of my favourite Gunas. It's the Luda Guna back in the house. DG, pleasure. How are you, my bro?
I'm good, my guy, man. I'm good, man. Always lovely to be here speaking Arsenal with you. I know it's not going to plan, and I'm sure we got a lot to discuss, but one love for having me, my guy.
Oh, come on, man. You're always welcome. You know that. It's great what we do. And I think it's working well, man. We're alternating at the moment, myself and DG. If you're not aware, I'll be on his channel one week, and he's coming on my channel the other Fridays at 1 p.m. or 1 p.m.-ish. Normally, we try to get to 1 to 1:30.
It's
So,
my bad this week,
yeah.
boys and
Nah,
girls,
it's
if you're
calm.
out there.
Come on, man. We're all busy people, aren't we? But it's a pleasure to have you on, man. And we got to talk
One love.
Arsenal. And in the moment, bruv, I'd love to say that we're going to be talking about how we're favourites for the Premier League, we're favourites for the Champions League, we're still in the competitions domestically, but we're out of both the domestic cups. It looks like we're out of the title race, and we are hanging on a thread when it comes to squad depth right now. Look, I wanted to chuck on the Premier League first of all, and there's a kind of stat on AFC stuff at the moment which shows our Premier League season so far of 27 games with 11 to go. We've had 15 wins, 9 draws, 3 losses. We've scored 51 goals. We've conceded 23 goals. We have a goal difference of plus 28, and we have 54 out of 81 points. We are in second place with that. Now, I think if we win all of our games, we can finish on 87, which would be 2 adrift from last year. But that's if we win every single game. And at the moment, it doesn't even look like we're going to be scoring goals, let alone winning games with the squad that we've got. Look, I look at the situation of 9 draws and 3 losses, and that is where it's killed us. Not the 3 losses so much, because you can lose 3 games and still win a title, right? It's the draws that has killed us. And draws in a title race kills you, bro. I look at the draws going for a top 4 race, and like we see in the table, we'd comfortably get top 4 if we would continue our form for the next 11 games. But we wanted to go and win the title, and it looks now like we've completely dropped the ball. What are you telling me about this title race right now, DG? And why do you think, if it is over, what do you put that down to, bro?
A man said, if it clearly is over, man. I know some people are doing the mathematics, and I guess until it's mathematically impossible, keep going. But how long you got, Dan, man? You said a lot of points there as I was listening to you speak, in which I've got nothing more to add. It just tells us what we know. I know many fans, first and foremost, sorry, my alarm's going off. Many fans will look at and say, oh, at least we're not like Spurs, we're not like Chelsea, we're not like United. That's the whole point. We don't want to be like that. Why are we looking down? Why are we looking down? We should be looking up. That just tells me what I've known the previous 2 years, that regardless of how these 3 years have panned out, whether it's been injuries or whatever, which these are all valid reasons, we haven't got over the line. That's the only thing I care about. We haven't got over the line, because what we've done in the transfer market, for the manager not arresting what he needs to arrest tactically, of course, it's been confounded by injuries and stuff, but it's just an absolute mess. Now, as you said there, it's not so much the losses. Nobody wants to lose. And yeah, the way we lost those 3 games, what was that? Newcastle away, Bournemouth away, and West Ham recently, we was lackluster. I think some of that comes back to the summer, because our players are spent, our players are, I like our manager, when it's crunch time moments, let's be honest, they crumble like they've done in the cup competitions. The draws are obviously annoying. You can't win or lose. You can't win every game, but we've not held on to leads. And sometimes it's been a bit cruel, the City game and, all of those. But then you have the Aston Villa being 2 goals up and then not coming home with the 3 points. It's those fine margins that our players and our manager love to waffle about, that we need to be on the right side of it, which we haven't done. That's why we're in this situation. You look at Liverpool at this moment in time. I know some fans don't want to give them a guard of honor, don't want to do this, that, and the third, yeah. But sometimes you just have to give them their credit. They were better than us. Fans looked at it and said, a lot of fans didn't have them in their top 4 predictions. They said Salah can't bail them out every week. They're going to get injuries, new manager, this, that, and the other. And they've seen all of those questions, knocked it off, and done what they're doing. Winners win and losers explain. We've created our own issues. Dan, you watch Arsenal, you go to Arsenal. We speak about Arsenal on and off air all the time. We're in this mess because we're in this mess. This is no different beyond the obvious from last season. We knew we didn't have the quality up front and out wide. We knew we didn't have enough depth. We knew we struggled if if Arteta went in with a plan A and didn't have something else to do. Everything we are talking about and going to speak about in this stream and at this point has been there since last season. Now, I'm past the point of it's all Arteta, it's all the board, it's all the players. You're all in it. It's like being in a crime scene. Everybody's fingerprints are there. The gloves have to be off for all of you. I don't think Arteta is going to be sacked. And I'm not even necessarily saying I'm at the pitchfork stage, but you don't have a leg to stand on. If he goes, I'm not crying. Like there's everything needs to be fine-tuned. For one moment, it looked like there was stability at this football club. I'm sure you're going to ask me about it, but we don't know what's going on with the sporting director. We've missed the ball in the 2 transfer windows. Our players look spent. Some of them don't look like they're built for it. Our manager, despite the injuries and things like that, isn't trying anything new. I don't know about you, Dan, but I actually like, in theory, the inverted stuff. But is it any surprise Kieran Tierney's overlapping? We're getting a bit of joy. And look at what we're celebrating. I'm celebrating a Kieran Tierney cross, Calafiori, who's shits defensively, even though I like him, hitting the post. That's all we've got to waffle about. And I know Arteta is scared because he's now starting to experiment with Zinchenko properly in midfield. So it's all a mess, Dan, man. It's all a mess.
It's interesting you mentioned injuries, bro, because there's a lot of people deciding to use that as a massive excuse. Now, I appreciate that we all get injuries. I do appreciate that Arsenal have had it pretty hard. But the reason I'm not going to give them any excuses is because actually they could have done something about it. Now, they could have done something about it in the summer window because we were already short going into that summer. We didn't.
Facts.
Then we went into January and we'd already had, at that time, Saka and Jesus down and we're relying on just Havertz and Martinelli. Now, we knew that by doing nothing, we were a Havertz or Martinelli injury away from crisis. And then what happens within 4 or 5 days of the window shutting? Both of them go down. One of them for the season. So for me, there's absolutely no excuses. Now, I could appreciate all of the players have gone down and some in the same positions at the same time. I wanted to ask you the serious question about Stephen Warnock the other day on Match of the Day, talking about how Liverpool would have coped without Salah, Jota, Diaz and Gakpo. Because my thinking is this. It's a great question. If their attack would go down, what would they do? But actually, I've seen Liverpool without Salah and they play Harvey Elliott or they play Gakpo or they play... what's his name? The guy they signed in the summer, Chiesa. Then they're up top. They've got Darwin Nunez or Jota. They've got Cody Gakpo or Luis Diaz. So they've actually got 6 attackers, the same as Arsenal. But I think Slot has dealt with injuries better than Mikel Arteta, and not just Slot, by the way. I think there's other managers that have dealt with it. Iriola, for example. You've got the Brighton manager has dealt with injuries. They're the 2 teams at the moment who are top of the league when it comes to injuries. They've had the most, and look at how well they're doing. Yeah. So there's no excuses for them. Poor them injuries are. But then you look at when Michael Arteta comes out and says, we should be mid-table and we should be out of the Champions League with the injuries that we've had and the red card decisions we've had and the VAR decisions we've had. I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, wow, you're deflected literally everything away from yourself. And the arrogance of the man to say that because of me, we're second. Like, hang on a minute. Let's make sure you stay second then, because you might not. The way things are going right now, maybe he's preparing us to expect that we're going to be probably finishing around about 7th or 8th then, because if he believes that we should be mid-table, that's what, 8th to 13th is mid-table? Where is he expecting us to finish this season? So they're the problems I've got. And I look at the Stephen Warnock situation and I think, yeah, it's a great point, but I have seen Liverpool have injuries this season and they've covered Alisson, they've covered Jota, they've covered Van Dijk, they've covered Kenyatte, they've covered Trent Alexander-Arnold. When they have got injuries in their midfield to Szoboszlai or Jones, they've covered it. When they have got injuries to Cody Gakpo, who's been out for the last few, they've covered it. So for me, I'm thinking, yeah, they're still top. They're still in everything other than the FA Cup. And they're still favourites to win the Carabao Cup, the Premier League, and they're one of the favourites to win the Champions League right now. So what's their excuse? And lastly, we didn't have injuries last season and we didn't win it. Liverpool had all the injuries under the sun. And they weren't making excuses about, oh my God, we haven't won the league because of our injuries. They said, didn't do them good enough. So why is it one rule for us and one rule for another? These injuries, I don't have much sympathy for them because we did nothing about it in the summer or January transfer windows to prepare us. We went into the season relying on the likes of Thomas Partey, Tomiyasu, Jesus, who we know are always injury prone. We went into the season knowing that by selling Eddie, Vieira, Nelson, and Smith Rowe and only bringing in one
not
player,
replacing them.
We haven't replaced them. We're not good enough
in terms of bodies.
So, I don't get it, bro. I don't know what your thoughts are about the injury situation at Arsenal and where you're kind of is it an excuse?
It's not an excuse. Injuries happen with everyone. Like you said, crucially, we saw what one injury could do for us in 2022-23 when Saliba went down. We still had a couple of injuries last season, but we had a clean run. This year, obviously, in theory, I've got sympathy for the players getting injured, but this is predictable. And for me, it's irrelevant. Life is, I do think Arsenal fans or some get into this trap of life mirrors football, right? You're never going to, if you have a goal in life or a dream or an ambition, it's never just A to B. There's going to be twists and turns and bumps and bruises. Now, in football terms, that's going to happen. You're never going to have favorable conditions. You're never going to have everybody fit. Everything isn't going to always go to plan on the pitch. The manager isn't going to get everything right. The players are going to let you down, but you still need to keep moving. I agree with the point about if Liverpool had 4 players injured, but That's cool. They didn't. We did. So what are we gonna do about that? Like, that's just the hopium and copium. Either way, with everybody fit, we needed to sign players. And I do think we've got what's coming to us. I don't know what we did last season in terms of rehabilitation and what we did this year. I don't know if these players were due injuries. And I'm just a fan, but we've been knowing Ben White's been playing with knocks and hamstring injuries and the rest of it. Saka's gonna need to be rested. You know, this one, that one. And like you said there, once you've got a small squad, the players that are fit, you're going to run them into the ground. It's irrelevant whether Arne Slot has done good in terms of keeping his players fit, whether he's had the options available. That's great for them. That's just a shot that some fans are trying to take to console their pain. It's irrelevant because it's not us. It's not us. Why don't we look at what we did? Now, had we have acted in the transfer market, you could caveat that and say if we got 2 extra attackers, we might have had a bit more options available to us. Or we could say the same thing would have happened. Then I would say, you know what, fair play. You proactively tried to go about a situation, but we didn't. What we face right now merely just highlights what Dan, me, I'm sure a lot of people in the chat, and just any effing Arsenal fan, even the ones that do the toxic positive thing in their hearts, know was going to be something that could happen. And for me, I'm past that. Injuries happen. Players get injured. Players need to be rested. The manager said, whether he's involved or not, the manager said at the beginning and end of last year, we've got one of the smallest squads. If nothing changes, nothing changes. So it's gross negligence from Mikel Arteta and everybody that has a hand in this squad building. I'm not with this he say, she say stuff anymore, Dan, about the players. Sorry, the board is not backing Arteta. Arteta wanted this, Edu that, this, that, the third. They talk about collaboration, Dan. Everybody's in it. What have we done? Players have been injured and we're still second. That just tells me there's a base like the last 2 years for us to build upon, but we have not taken advantage of this. It's dead, bro. It's dead. It really is dead. It doesn't mean anything for me.
Look, man, the club have let us down. They've let the
Let us
fans
down.
down big time. From Arteta upwards, the players have not let us down. I feel sorry for them. They're in the trenches with each other trying to get through the games. And they're looking at the situation thinking, right, we've got a decent goalkeeper here. Me and, let's say I'm Saliba. Me and Gabriel at the back is looking pretty good. I've got Timber and Ben White either side of me. I've got Declan Rice and Partey in front of me. Erdegaard pulling the strings. Right, now I've got a front three of Sterling and Marino. What's happening here? What's happening here? So that for me tells me that there's some massive problems in the squad and the squad depth. Now, you made a good point about like who's to blame and how do we do this. I think Mikel Arteta is definitely 100% to blame for the injuries at Arsenal because when I look at what he was doing in treatment of Saka, it was abysmal. The treatment of Havertz when he can hardly walk against Wolves, we're still trying to play him. Is poor. Martinelli's gone down. We've got Timber who's going to go down next. Ben White was playing through injury. I don't care about Jesus and Tommy Asu. They get injured all the time. So I look at the scenario of the players that have been injured this season. It's usually the durable players. And it's because they've been playing way too many games. And Gabriel
Ran into the ground, man.
They've run into the ground. And Gabriel, Saliba and Timber are the next 3. They're the ones that have played the most games. So I'm looking at them thinking, who covers them? We don't have any cover for them, right? We still don't have defensive cover. So there's a lot to blame, in my opinion, there. Let me just quickly stick to the stuff on the pitch. What we're seeing at the moment, in my opinion, is completely blunt up top. Now, the excuse at the moment is that we don't have anybody, right? We've still got Trossard. We've got Ethan, who at the moment, yes, he's 17 years old, but he's actually playing very well. And it is just that centre forward that everyone is unfortunately scratching their head about what we try and do. Now, we've tried to play Trossard, Sterling and Waneri. Against Leicester, it did not work. We flung on Marino. He scored 2 goals and everybody got excited very quickly. Now he's our striker. The problem I've got, DG, is we're not actually playing with a striker in any of the games that I've seen in the last 3 because Marino's been playing right back, left back, here, there and everywhere. You've got Calafiori. God knows where he was supposed to be playing against Nottingham Forest. Kieran Tierney and Zinchenko had stints up front, I thought, against Forest from what I could see from the tactics of the team. What does he have to do? Because I want to see something different now. I understand and appreciate the league's in the bin, but I actually want to see how we can get something different out of this team. I want him to start earning this £15 million a year to coach something a little bit differently because people ask him what he can do. There is stuff he can do. I'm not saying it's going to work, but you need to try it. You need to try a formation change. You need to look at saying, let's try somebody through the middle like Ethan. You need to try and look at maybe a different sort of balance in midfield, maybe a double pivot. Maybe you go over 3. Maybe you try and do something more creative with Erdegaard. I don't know. But for me right now, I need to see change, bruv. What would you like to see moving forward, mate?
Like you said, Danny, don't have an answer for what's going to work. I think we spoke on your channel and we spoke about when the initial injuries happened, and we said, simply put, we're just going to have to play everything by ear. I still think you're going to have to see that option of Merino up front at some point, but if nothing changes, nothing changes. Now, as you crucially said, we could change things and it still don't work, but at least you've tried something. I don't think we're going to see a formation change. We've seen Arteta is stubborn in what he wants to do on the football pitch, but I'd be open to that, especially because you've indirectly said it. You know, I like Calafiori. I think he's horrible defensively and he's a work in progress, but his strengths are going forward. Tierney gave us something. Zinni's there. So is it a free at the back thing and you kind of get the attacking intent from your fullbacks? I personally don't think, you know, the Haylenders that have been on the bench are going to change the world for us, but they're there now. Try something new. Like, try something. You said it, Dan. There's nothing I can add on to what you said. Just try something new. If nothing changes, nothing changes. And even when everybody's fit, we still play the same way. And that's where I feel a striker and a winger helps us out a lot. But there's also a lot that if Mikel Arteta is going to be here, he's going to have to address on a football field. You know, we're not creating enough. I don't care what the shots say and the chances. There was a point where our defenders were in the highlights for having our goals and having our half shots. We need to start creating in the final third. And it seems like he's relatively able to coach us defensively and in the middle third. Once we get into the final third, it's nothing. It's slow. It's not disrupting it, as you saw against Newcastle, as you saw against West Ham. And there's definitely another game. Nuno Espirito Santo actually came out after the Forest game and kind of alluded to it. If you're not going to move a compact side, if you're not going to move the ball quickly against a compact side, as you know yourself, Dan, we're in issues. It's all fun and games having one or two players making that run, but nobody's going to find them. So he has to change something, Dan. But I've come to accept everything now, man. Whatever happens,
Unfortunately, bro, I think a lot of fans are starting to accept that we are what we are. And I do believe that the club needs to look at himself and say, right, as an ownership, have I done everything to back this team and manager? As a board, have we done everything in our power to ensure that Mikel Arteta has the right players around? And Mikel Arteta needs to look and say, have I had a voice powerful enough to explain to the board and owners what we need this January? Because we're in desperate times. And I think it's failed on all three parts, if I'm honest with you.
Exactly.
Which is why we're in the position we're in, bro. And look, the league title is not over because mathematically we can win it. Every Arsenal fan in their right mind knows that it is. But what I would do now is forget the title. I just want to start looking at how we can win some of these games. And I need to see something change, whether it's formation or players or both. Look, I'm a big fan of what we've done at the back. I think defensively, we've got a really good defensive unit when everyone's fit. I like Raya in goal. And I think when our midfield is fit, although I don't know that we're quite there with it, I do think Partey, Rice and Odegaard could be worse midfields in the league. But that front three, we need to go and sign a front three again. Let's just have it right. The front three of Havertz, Saka and Martinelli is fine if you want to keep those three, but the backups we need to replace. Sterling, Jesus and Trossard could all be out the door in the summer. That means we need three players across the front three. A lot of people are suggesting we might need a couple more midfielders as well because we know the rumours of Partey and Jorginho. And then there's going to be defenders leaving, which is probably going to consist of Kivior, Zinchenko, Tierney and potentially others. So for me, I look at it and think every department in this summer is massive, DG. A goalkeeper will need to replace Neto. Defenders will leave, they'll need to be replaced. Partey and Jorginho will need to be replaced. And then the front three I've just mentioned could all walk out the door in terms of the backups, and we might need a front three. So, we're talking about 8 or 9 players coming in the summer, and that could be a huge rebuild at Arsenal. And I wanted to you before we start to go into rumours and links and players and forwards and sporting directors and all that, which we still got to discuss. Do you see that many players and that overhaul in the summer? Do you think it's going to happen?
No, man, we're not getting no 8, 9 players, man. I just can't see it. I hope I'm wrong. And you know, we all know we're gonna see the rhetoric come out, kind of selling before you can buy, and this one doesn't want to leave, and this one doesn't. We haven't got an asking price for that one. I don't think we're getting that many numbers. I think you're bang on the money. You could argue, I would say we need 2 attackers, but you could argue 3. You could argue a case of 2 midfielders, but I think all fans are probably accepting, quote unquote, that we're going to get 1 to partner Declan Rice. We need to sort out what we're doing with a keeper or 2 beyond David Raya. I personally have said it, that I think we need another defender, ideally a versatile one, because there's times we need to look after our players. And obviously, I know it's a midfielder, but especially in line with Odegaard's form and all of that, and even when he was injured, you could caveat that and say a 10. I can't see all of these players coming in, all these players going, new contracts being signed. I know there's rumors, and I'm sure we're going to get onto it about the sporting director, but how much plans can be put into place without a sporting director? Not that that's an excuse, because I actually feel you should be able to keep it moving in that regards, especially when R1 left in November and allegedly Jason Ito is doing great work behind the scenes in January. And I just, again, I hope I'm wrong and we see a madness in the summer. You can say, oh, that's what he's talking about. But to me, as an ignorant fan that shouldn't actually care about being a fly on the wall in the boardroom and whatnot, I never saw no one in January. The last two transfer windows, which were arguably our most important, but beyond last year, we fumbled the bag. I hope it's third time lucky. But for me, Dan, I'm at the stage, honestly, seeing is believing. I'm only going to believe players are coming in when they're actually here. I'm only going to believe we're getting rid of players that are past their sell-by date when they're actually gone. I'm actually only going to believe we win a Premier League title when me and you, I say, yo, Dan, well, God, and we're at Islington and we're watching them actually lift it. It's show and prove now, man, for everybody at this football club, man. Like, it's a shame because we're still second. Like, we still have a base, and it's a third year in a row where just missed it, just dropped the ball, and a lot of it's self-inflicted. Credit to Liverpool, but in our hearts, we didn't put our best foot forward. And kind of what you were saying, like everyone connected to the club is let them down and let us fans down, really.
Yeah, Liverpool can't believe it. They've been used to going up against Manchester City right to the wire. We're used to going up against Manchester City right to the wire. And when either of those teams have been flying up in front, there's been that blue shark behind them, or there's been the blue shark in front that we're trying to actually try and hunt down. I look at the situation at Arsenal and I think, yeah, Liverpool are like, oh, it's going to go to the wire. Oh, no, it's not. Okay, we've won it. Brilliant. Okay, cool. And that
It's
is
regression
embarrassing
this
as
year,
far as
man.
Arsenal are concerned. Huge regression, man. Let's get to it, man. Let's talk about this sporting director thing because there's been some rumors already about some of the names that are being mentioned. David Ornstein has been out and explained who we are looking at. And obviously, one of them is Jason Ato, who is the current, whatever you want to call him. He remains option for the full-time post. But the other names are Dan Ashworth, Andrea Berta, who obviously was at Atletico Madrid, Roberto Alabi over at Real Sociedad, who is stepping down, and Thiago Scuro, who at the moment is still at Monaco, I believe. These are the names that are being discussed internally, according to David Ornstein, that we're looking to hold talks with. Any of those names that you do want, and any of those names you absolutely do not want, bro?
I can't lie, man. The three names after Dan Ashworth, when you look into what they've done, you know, you look at what Monaco is doing at this moment. Thiago, I'm not against it. I would love Roberto Alabi to sign for us just because I've seen his work at Sociedad and what he's doing and things of that ilk. Andrea Berta, so I couldn't see his name. See what he's doing at Atletico Madrid and some of the transfer windows he's had. I think they're all heavyweights within their own weight and they could all add something as long as when they sign for us, their voice is as loud in that boardroom or above board or above football as Mikel Arteta. As long as it's respectfully to Jason Ito, as long as it's not him, because I do think we've tried the kind of novice thing, which Edu was, but he was significantly more experienced than you. I think we need a steady ship. Like you just said, you could argue 7, 8, 9 players and there's a bunch of outgoings. There's a lot to do. I do think we need a more experienced man in that regards. In relation to Dan Ashworth, I mean, for every you do see he's done good stuff. I mean, they're all at big clubs and all have been at big clubs. They're clearly good at being sporting directors, regardless of what us fans feel. I just don't feel Dan Ashworth's the guy. I know he's got a good relationship with Richard Garlick, and football's a small world. Everyone's going to have good relations with everyone or know of everyone. But I don't really want jobs for the boys, if I'm honest, anymore. We've tried all of that and it didn't get us anywhere. So my first choice on that list would be between, well, I'd say Alabi, then the Berta guy, then Thiago, then Dan Ashworth, and by default it'd be Jason Ito, who's technically the guy at this moment in time. We're not going to get Luis Campos because his name's not there, and yeah, it is what it is.
Bro, I can't lie. The three names that excite me, or I won't even say excite me. The three names I would happily want us to go with out of that list would first of all be Andrea Berta. He'd be the number one. And then, if I'm honest with you, I like the work that Alabi has done at Real Sociedad in terms of what his role has been. It might not be that they have been a successful club, but certainly some of the names that Real Sociedad have had over the last few years have been quite exciting. Thiago Scuro at the moment, I think what Monaco are doing and have done, I think he's quite an experienced guy from what I'm hearing and what he's done.
Find us them gems and whatnot, man. If we're not going to put the big money down.
Exactly that. I don't want Ashworth or Ato anywhere near Arsenal. I don't. I don't get what Ashworth is so great at. He went to United, they chucked him out. Newcastle, they're like, well, they seem to be doing okay. And Brighton, I mean, let's be real, they haven't missed him one bit. So for me, I don't get him. Jason Ato needs to get the hell out of there. He should have been sacked in January. absolutely imbecile. So that for me is where we're at. And look, Andrea Berta is a guy that I was worked under Diego Simeone and his coaching staff and understands what it is like to have a winning mentality. Now, I understand and appreciate that in the last 3 years they haven't won anything, and some people would say that he deserves to be sacked, etc.
And try and compete
Difference
around
is,
two bigger clubs as well, or
bruv,
better teams.
do you know what? He's got credit in the bank because he's competed with those two bigger clubs that had Ronaldo and Messi at the time, and he ended up winning the league whilst they were playing in that league. That's incredible, unbelievable achievement, right? So for me, he's won enough trophies at Atletico Madrid to be deserving a little bit more credit in the bank. And then I look at the scenario with Alabi, and I think, yeah, a lot of people are getting excited because Zubamendi might come. We've already got Marino and Erdegaard. Isak could then get on the way. I understand everyone's thoughts of that, but it doesn't mean if we get Roberto Alabi, that means all of a sudden Isak's coming to Arsenal. We've got to get that in our heads, right? So we just need a sporting director who knows what they are doing and has done the job at an experience level. Because at board level and ownership level, and some would say at management level and coaching staff level, it is very young. It is very, very young. And I appreciate they've all done their job and they've done their own work and they've done their apprenticeships and they've got CVs that says they can do the job. But how much experience do they have? And sometimes when you're in a management position, you need a right-hand man to go, yo, Mikel, I love you, man, but we got to change the ways here. We just got to do this instead of that. Everything else is spot on. You're right to do X, Y, Z. But yeah, this one's got to change.
Facts.
And David Dean did that with Arsene Wenger, and Arsene Wenger had that with other players across and the management staff, etc. Jose Mourinho has had it. Sir Alex Ferguson has had it. All the greats have had it. Yeah, because people say, oh, Ancelotti and Sir Alex Ferguson and Pep, they've all been on their own. They ain't been on their own. They've had a whole coaching staff with them. They've had their right-hand man. Yeah, so for me, that's where I'm at. This experienced head needs to come in. And it is probably the most important signing of Arsenal's history, if I'm honest. Because right now, we're in a way that we have to look at it and say, right now, this is going to be more of an exciting, signing than any of the players we bring in. Because if I'm relying on Jason Ato and Arteta to have a chat about who we're bringing in, I ain't got any confidence it's someone that's going to go well, right? So I need somebody to have the experience alongside Mikel Arteta and not be afraid to challenge him at times. So that's where I'm at with the sporting director, brother, if I'm honest with you. Obviously, there's other news suggesting that Luis Campos is not in the frame. That's come from David Ornstein. So obviously, that's not something
He would have been good.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have spoken about him and we're quite happy to have him. But for me, I'm still happy with some of the names on that list. I don't really mind. I mean, Marco Nepe or Nepe, is it, from Bayern Munich, the guy who's left? He would have been quite good. I think Sartori over at Bologna has done quite good bits over there. So there's other names. But for me, out of the names that are listed, I would probably look at Berta as being the one that I would want because obviously the time at Atletico Madrid has been good. Roberto Alabi's mentioned as well and Scuro. But the other names ain't for me. And I certainly, bruv, do not want Thomas Rosicky or Per Mertesacker or Jason Ato or anyone getting involved that's Arteta's buddy. I want it to be someone who's come from a club that knows what they're doing, man.
So outside voice, a different way. Obviously, they're going to have to, tailor how they operate to whatever the club's telling them. But I just want someone with fresh ideas, a different way of doing things. I know you all have to be aligned in an organization, but I just think we need something different. Like, even though I'm not fond of Jason Ito and, we was running jokes earlier, at the same time, though, if I remove the fact that I'm mad about that, you've put someone that's just been there number two if the summer was important, the January period is even important. You've put him into a scenario where he's ultimately going to fail, if I'm honest with you. So it does speak volumes of the club, if I'm honest. So yeah, man, I second that. We need an experienced man and we need to get it together now, man, because I haven't got too much expectations on the summer. That's not to say I don't think we're going to sign X, Y, Z. But as I said earlier, for me, it's show and prove. And one thing that will make me a bit more confident that we're moving in that direction is the topic we've been speaking about, Dan. Getting a sporting director in. It's been since November. It's now March, basically, February. So this must be the guy for you. And I almost feel sorry for the sporting director because all our eggs are going to be in your basket. We want a bit of hope. We want to feel like someone's going to be making something happen. And again, we're not flies on the wall. We're not going to know what is being said, what's going on. So yeah, man, let's just hope we get it right, Dan, man.
Well, we need to, bro. We need to. And the voices at the club is a very interesting statement. And David Ornstein's also spoke on that today in The Athletic. And I don't really listen or read or listen to much of that stuff, but this is what's come up from it. He's basically said that he is a hugely influential voice, Mikel Arteta, but he's not the only one. Arteta wanted Watkins, however, he doesn't control the purse strings, and rightly so. He's the coach or the manager. Matthias Tell was discussed internally. Arsenal made checks with his camp on the situation, but I don't know of that going any further. They wanted a number 9, and Tell isn't a number 9. What do you make of the actual situation in January of who had a most influential voice? Do you believe in the Watkins and Tell stuff? Do you think it was just a cover up for like, yeah, we tried, but we're going to wait till the summer? Do you believe that we actually did genuinely go for these two players?
I think it's a mess by everyone, Dan, man. I think, Arteta, if they sat there and said, you know what, there's no money to spend, you're going to want a budget in the summer. If there's no money to spend in January, you had your summer window. You told us these are the players, fair enough. If Arteta was there begging for signings and they didn't take him up on that, fair enough. If Jason Ito, a young man out of his depth, tried to pull a rabbit out the hat, fair enough. Fundamentally, nothing was done. Like, that's where I'm at the point, Dan, where you could blame a sporting director, you could blame the gaffer. You tell us about collaborative stuff. You're all in this together. Like, we'll never know the truth with the Watkins stuff, because on one hand, you hear Arteta wanted Watkins. On the other hand, you hear he was offered to us by Aston Villa. So you didn't proactively go about him. The Tell stuff, whether it's loans, free agents, Premier League loans, if you make Neto's deal permanent, loans from abroad. Like, I know we're not the biggest fans of Morata, but I would have bitten your arm off for Morata considering the context in January. Everybody has to just hold it now, man. Everybody just has to hold it. I think everybody's tried to be a chef and they spoilt the meal, in it. Like, everybody's got to hold criticism. Like, you've all fumbled it. Like, I always say the same example on your channel, Dan. If you're at grandma's house with your cousins as a little kid and you're messing about in a room and having fun and someone breaks something, everyone's gonna get smacked. She's not gonna ask who did what. You're all in this together. In the same way, if you pulled a rabbit out the hat in January or we had a great summer, I'll give you all your praise.
It's
You're all in
simple,
this together.
It's quite simple.
Business.
This is what I mean. Like, people don't see it as simple, and it really is, man.
No, because
why
Dan,
always me says we need to play attacking 8 when we need to attack teams. Like Zinchenko with Rice as a 6, and when we wanted to defend, play Party and Rice as a 6 and 8. Simple. Yeah, let me ask you on this quick, because the 6 and the 8 and the 10 situation, I think I'd rather see us go to a 4-2-3-1, if I'm honest with you. Because if we are going to bring in Zubimendi, I need to see Zubimendi alongside Rice in a double pivot. I don't want to see one of Rice bombing forward. I need to see both of them holding. And if I'm honest with you, I'd rather see that with Partey and Rice right now. I don't like Rice in the 8. I never have. I think he's a brilliant 6. In fact, I think he's a class 6. Thomas Partey definitely isn't an 8. Odegaard could be an 8, and we could go and bring in a number 10. That could be an option. But really and truly, I kind of want to see Rice and Zubimendi together if we're playing them both. What do you see the future of our midfield, bro, with this 6, 8, 10 stuff?
I think it's more of the same with Martin Wondergaard, as I call him, in the 10, even though he hasn't been doing anything wonderful. I think he's in the 10. I think Rice is persisting in the 8. And I don't want to get into the trap of talking about a player that's not at our club, but just the fact that Zubimendi's a 6, I think it will stay. I do think early on in his time at Arsenal, prior to these last 3 years when we was fighting for a title, I do think Arteta had more of a school of thought of like different horses for courses. Like I always mention to people, the Brighton game, we lost to Brighton. Lokonga was the lone 6. You had Smith Rowe and Odegaard either side. Now, for obvious reasons, Lokonga as a lone 6 setting up to failure. And I do think there has to be a correlation with us getting better and being second, with us seeing the same kind of system. But I do think he needs to find different ways, man. So I'm on what you're on. I don't mind Rice and Partey or Zubimendi or whatever and Odegaard, but I'd like to see Odegaard potentially playing at 8. I'd like to see a lone 6 and 2 rotating 8. So I do think little couple moments in a season or in a couple of games across the season so far, he needs to be a bit more flexible, man. I think he's gone too much on somewhat controlling games and controlling the fine margins, and goes into games kind of like, I know he wants to win, but because I can't say a manager doesn't, but it's almost like, I don't want to lose is my first thought rather than I can win. And that's why I feel a striker or a winger doesn't necessarily, beyond the obvious, fix our problems. Because I do think, obviously, you get a winger, you get a striker, we're going to score more goals. We're going to be kind of happy as Larry, right? But tactically, I'm not seeing it as clear cut as you get a striker or you get a winger, there's a lot of space. That left-hand side's still a mess. That left-hand side is still a mess. The right-hand side, when everybody's fit, if everybody's fit, which is dangerous terminology, is our thing. But it's quite predictable. And as you've seen it play out, when these guys are not on song or they're not fit, or you've got Odegaard there, I just think Odegaard's playing poor, for example, because Odegaard's playing poor. But there might be some commonality behind that. There's no Saka. Benjamin White ain't been there. So we need to address it. Again, as I said at the start of this, Dan, a lot of these things we're talking about and angry about, we didn't discover them this year. They've been there. They were there in the summer. They were there game in, game out. Because let's have it right. This has been the worst title challenge of the 3 years. There's been regression. The first year, exciting football, breath of fresh air. Last year, it was a lot more cerebral in how we defended. This year's just it's been terrible, really. Like, look at what we're seeing week in, week out. It's predictable, it's stale. Whether we win, lose, or draw, we are saying the same things. The manager is saying the same things. The data is showing us the same things. If you don't progress or adapt, you stagnate. And yeah, you can see where we are, unfortunately.
Yeah, man. Listen, before we start to look towards some of the games that we've got coming up, because Champions League is back and we've still got
Oh, man.
11 games left in the bloody Premier League to get through. Let's talk about a rumour, because today we are linked summer again. It's always about the summertime at Arsenal. To
Yeah, we're at
Joshua
that point
Kimmich.
now.
We are at that point, bro. The window was only
Oh,
open a
mate.
few weeks ago, but there's rumours of Joshua Kimmich. He's on 300 million euros a week at the moment at Bayern Munich, and his contract is up. Arsenal hold concrete interest in Kimmich and have held talks with the player in recent days, apparently. I don't know how we do that without a sporting director, but there we go. Kimmich is hesitant to renew his contract with Bayern due to 2 offers from other clubs on the table, one of which is from a Premier League team. So I imagine it's probably ourselves and one more. I don't know if it's Liverpool or City, or maybe it's United or somebody else, Chelsea, God knows who, right? Could be anybody. What do you make of this rumour? Would it be a good signing if we're losing Partey and Jorginho and the links are Zubimendi and Kimmich to come in? Do you think this would be a good move, or is it just you think it's paper talk, man?
I think it's paper talk. I'd love to be proven wrong because I like Kimmich, but I think it's paper talk because there's also simultaneous rumors that Bayern are trying to get him to sign a new deal. They've pulled the contract from him, so we don't really know. Honestly, if I was a footballer, I don't know what Kimmich's thoughts is, but you're gonna play the game. If Arsenal and City and these guys have made offers, you might genuinely want to go play under Pep. You might genuinely want to go play under Arteta. Or you might want to stay at Bayern Munich and leverage the fact that your contract's running down. 2 clubs are interested in you. You're going to sit, your agent's going to sit in that negotiating room and say, these clubs are onto me. They could be playing the game, man. It really is. I'd imagine there's a level of interest. It's Joshua Kimmich. Obviously, he's perfect player for Arteta. Can play centre mid, can play right back, inverted. It makes sense. I wouldn't be against it. I know people are gonna say he's not of the right age profile. It costs a lot of money, and all of these things are right. And we all know how Arsenal operate with this self-sustaining model. But at this point, if we want to be Premier League winners, we got to do things like this. So if there was a legitimacy in this, I'm not against it. I'm definitely not against it. But I just think it's journalists getting clicks, man. If I'm honest.
Yeah, look, I've got to be honest with you. I like him as a player. I do believe he's a good, experienced head with a good mentality and can be quite versatile in terms of where he can play. I believe he can play 6'8" and right back, right? So there's definitely room for him in the Arsenal side. I just don't see this happening because I just feel like he will either stay in Germany, find another club, and I just don't know that he would be interested in coming and playing for the Arsenal. I just don't know why. I can't really give you a reason. Maybe it's the wages. £300,000 a week he's going to
Plus, you
want.
still got Havertz and a new striker
Still
and
got
new
Havertz
renewals and
and more
everyone else.
players. Yeah, is it the best sort of signing for us? Maybe because it's a free transfer, and obviously it would only just be wages. But there's still £20 million we're putting towards Kimmich at 30 years old. I like him though. I don't think we're signing a washed player if we were to get him. I just don't think I can see him coming to Arsenal. I think he'd look towards a City move ahead of us. I think he'd probably look towards
Guardiola.
Liverpool, if I'm honest. Yeah, I think Liverpool, he walks into that team under slot and does well as well. So look, there'll be other teams abroad as well that are interested in him. So we'll have to see what happens with this one. There's obviously rumours as well and talks from Mikel Arteta about potentially some outgoings. Now, John Cross has suggested that there could be a couple of players that we might have to look at cashing in on. And the 2 suggested are Trossard and Martinelli. And it says Arsenal due to do have scope to do big deals this summer, both in terms of PSR and spending power, but they might have to sell either Trossard or Martinelli. They've both been targets for Saudi clubs. And I think we could actually see Trossard leaving. I don't think Martinelli definitely goes, but I think if a club comes in and gives us 65 million, 70 million, they're going to say yes to that. They ain't going to keep him. Whether anyone would pay that much for him, I don't know. But when I look at Trossard, I think that, yeah, he's rejected his contract. He's only got 1 year left. He goes on a free, if not at the end of next summer. I think we might have to cash in on him. I think Jesus might be likewise go to Saudi in January once his ACL's done, and he'll probably be leaving alongside him, and then that opens the door for a couple of attackers. What do you make of Martinelli and Trossard? Do you think they'll both still be here, or we'll cash in on them?
I mean, if you get an offer for both players, you have to consider it, and you have to assume both of them want to go to Saudi, and they're at different stages of their life. You know, Trossard, And Martinelli might be comfortable in London, might be comfortable in Europe. Obviously, the money is eye-watering. Trossard being significantly older than Martinelli might go for it a bit more. I think of the two, you're more likely to sell Trossard because, as you said in yourself, again, his contract is running out, all of that kind of stuff. It might be a chance to get some income. Maybe, I know they don't play in the same role, but with Ethan's emergence as an attacking player, there might be a body that's filled in that regard. Personally, obviously money talks. If you get an offer that you can't refuse, I'm not, unless you get that, and obviously the contract makes the difference. I actually don't want to sell Trossard and Martinelli. I don't think they should be starting. I think they should be squad players, but we've been talking about the depth a lot. If we let them go and bring two in, it's a bit like last season, in which obviously I didn't want Smith Rowe to go, but it's not the end of the world. Eddie definitely isn't the end of the world. Fabio Vieira going on loan isn't the end of the world, but you've not got the bodies. Now, if it's the season like before this year where everybody's staying fit, I guess you got a leg to stand on. But this year has highlighted what happens when you don't have enough bodies, when you don't have enough qualities, when you don't have enough game changers, because there's also been times everybody's been fit and we've had a somewhat fit squad and we've needed to nick a game, turn a draw into 3 points. That's normally right up Trossard Street. All options are on the table. I'm more likely to sell Trossard, but I think it's about building the squad, man. And there's also rumors around Martinelli about getting a new contract. So I don't know what to make of that, really, man. We're at that point of the season or getting there, Dan, man.
I think he wants to keep Martinelli, but he wants him as a backup winger. I think Trossard could be the one that we leave because, if I'm honest with you, if he ain't going to sign, Trossard's going to have to go. Jesus is out. I think Havertz, Saka, and Martinelli stay. Sterling goes back. Trossard is sold, and then we go and get a left winger and a striker. And then Jesus, obviously, we wait until he comes back and then make a decision. That's what I think will probably need to happen and probably will happen, if I'm honest with you. I don't want to sell Martinelli. I love him. But if an offer comes in that's too good to turn down, then, yeah.
We've got decisions to make.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. And I think he's wanted a left winger for quite some time now, bro.
We wanted Mudryk over Martinelli.
Yeah, he wanted Mudryk. He wanted Nico. He wants Nico Williams. There's rumors that we're going to go in for him in the summer. So if I'm honest with you, I think that's the one that he kind of does want. So that'll be very, very interesting. Next, there's some talk about what Arteta wants to do. According to John Cross, he's determined to oversee a major shake-up of a big-name striker and winger. Arteta is a huge admirer of Isak, but Sesko, who may be allowed to go for 55 million, is more realistic. They also want to spend big on another forward option, and they want a left winger with Nico Williams, their top of their list, but also admirers of Semenyo. So again, they're looking at those two positions. Now, I've got to be real with you, bro. If we end up with Sesko over Isak and Nico Williams or Semenyo over somebody like a Cunha or maybe even a Lookman, I'm going to be a little bit peeved off, to be fair, because I actually think my two players that I would go for would be Isak and Cunha. Because Cunha is absolutely balling out. He can play left. He can play across the front three, it seems.
He's playing the 10 as well.
And playing the 10 as well. And Isak is clearly levels above Sesko. If we were to get those two players, I'd be really excited. If we was to go and get Sesko and maybe Williams, they're 21. They're not proven. They've still got potential. They're going to be a few seasons. We're going to have to give them a season to adapt. I think there's a very, very different window or different rating that I can
process, Dan, man.
Yeah, and I don't want to be doing much of that anymore. What about you, though, bro?
I mean, why would you not want Isak? Isak would be the stuff of dreams in it. Isak's a level raiser. He's Premier League proven. The number 14 shirt is free. We've seen firsthand on a number of occasions what Isak can do to not only our football club, but a lot of clubs. We should have got him to what in 2022 and all of that. Like, if we put the money down and Newcastle want it to happen and Isak, fair enough. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. I don't think, again, to go back to what we said, I know we're not going to get 7, 8, 9 players, but we could probably agree on 4 or 5 areas need to be adjusted. I don't know the finances. We hear we're in a strong position regardless of PSR, but I can't see us putting down the money and the wages and all of that for Isak, for Nico Williams, let's even for argument's sake, assume Zubimendi don't want to sign and we go for Kimmich. I just can't see it. I do agree. I'm actually a fan of Sesko. I do think Sesko's good. I do agree that you can't really go from Isak to Sesko, because I've said in my videos, I think that's one thing that goes against him. It would just be if we don't get an Isak and the other one you said, and we get like a Semenyo and Sesko, I do think they're two good players, but it's hardly one, and indirectly they're level raisers, but it's hardly one that you look at and you're like, right, you know what, 4th time lucky this Premier League season, we're gonna go and do it. We just have to see, man. It wouldn't inspire me, but I'd give the club credit for at least finally addressing in those areas. But yeah, man, is it we badly want the Isaacs and people that are gonna be level raisers. Nico Williams, I know statistically his form's not been great, even though he scored 2 good goals, I think, last week in the cup. I mainly want Nico Williams, not just because I think we need a position or he's a decent player regardless of form, but you know how the Arteta sexuals are. They say Arteta needs his players, he needs this, he needs that. If that's his player, go and get him. So then if he shows the quality, cool. What you were saying was holding weight. Fair enough. It's one less excuse. What I don't want to see done as well, as much as Desesco, Isaac, Semenyo, this one, that one, if you go after them and you get some of these guys, great. But if you don't, I don't want to hear we tried. I don't want to hear there was no one else available on the market. We've seen this year how it pans out. And if nothing changes, man.
Look, man, we're going to hear that we got war chest. We're going to hear we link with this, that, and the third. Right now, there's a lot more to worry about because we've got to try and stay in this top 4 fight because otherwise we're going to drop out of that. And we've got to try and get as far as we can in the Champions League. So that's what I want to end on, man. Let's talk about the Champions League first. We've got PSV over 2 legs. And then if we are lucky enough to get through them, we've got Real Madrid or Atletico Madrid. So what are you telling me about this Champions League run, man? Can we get through PSV?
Wait, Dan. I mean, if we had a fully fit Saka and a couple of others, I'd still feel a bit of how I feel, but I'd have a bit more optimism. Let's just hope the footballing gods bless us in it because I know Arsenal fans, we're getting into this trap, or some are like, oh, would you rather play Real Madrid? Would you rather play Atletico? You need to go past PSV. They should feel that they're in this on merit. They deserve to be here. We're there for the taking. Arguably, they can win it just as much as us. Obviously, we saw how Sporting Lisbon ended. We saw Villarreal. We've seen a couple, Olympiacos. We've seen that. I don't know, man. I think I just, to have any chance, we got to win the game at the Emirates, in it. It's the game away from home that I'm a bit nervous of. And to be honest, the club hasn't given me anything to be optimistic about. We're seeing how we're playing week in, week out. I hope that we obviously go through. I can't say I'm optimistic, man. I really can't say I'm optimistic. I'm scared, kind of, really.
Say that I am either. They've signed Lucas Perez, by the way. He can't play against us, but because he isn't registered. But he actually has been signed for.
Big him up for finding the club, man.
I'm glad, man, that he can't play against us. Imagine if he scores against us. Look, we're in a position where I think we've got to try and do what we can to get across the line across 2 legs, right? So if it means we have to stink it out, we have to stink it out. I feel like we're going to have to go into that competition, into every single game and try and stink it out. And we're trying to do it against top teams. It's different in the Premier League when you've got to go away to Southampton and you've got to try and beat Brentford or Bournemouth or Palace at home with a team like we've got. When you're trying to beat Real Madrid over 2 legs and PSVs and then Bayern Munich's and these types of teams, we're going to really struggle. And look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't have a problem with Raya. I think our back 4 looks to be fit. Partey, Rice and Odegaard at the moment, as much as I quite prefer a double pivot at the moment, is probably the best that we've got. Odegaard does need to look at his game, and I wanted to ask you on him. But the front 3 fills me with no confidence whatsoever that we're going to score goals. And when I'm looking towards Ethan as the only threat, that's a big problem.
It's a big ask on a 17-year-old, man. As good as he is.
Man, 100. So let me ask you your kind of predictions as to what you're expecting across those 2 games, and that only those 2 games in the PSV home and away leg. And the question on Martin Odegaard and whether he can actually finally turn up and be a captain and leader and drag us across the line, because that's what we need him to do, man.
I'm a big fan of Martin Odegaard, as you know, but I'm a fan of my club the most. And, you know, there was a point, I think your form was dramatically better than this. I think, you know, I almost feel like a fool, Martin Odegaard, because there was a time you weren't in the squad and we was begging for you to return. I don't know if you're still carrying an injury or whatever, but like you said, you need to stand up to be counted. A lot of these footballers have to look at the fact that regardless of what you have to say about our club, 2 players in an 18-year-old Lewis Skelly and a 17-year-old Wanyeri, they've been showing us fans what we want in terms of consistency and just what it means. Odegaard needs to step up. Yeah, there's, you know, you might not be fully fit. There's injuries, whatever. We're not seeing you in games. Like, you're not influencing it in any way. Of course, I'd love you to score 1 million goals and get assists, but your influence, like your influence isn't there. And it's got to the point with Martin Odegaard. I don't want to sound like I'm being disingenuous, but I do look at now, if Odegaard's the captain, I assume that means you're one of the biggest voices in the change room and they listen to you. If that's the captain and that's the one that walks in the room and you lot shut up and listen to him, then I'm kind of questioning the whole thing. He needs to stand up to be kind. He needs to stop hiding. He needs to just pull his finger out his arse and just get it going. In relation to what you asked me about the 2 legs, PSV away, me and you have spoken about this before. Naturally, I'm very wary of any away game in Europe because I just feel that's where the magic kind of happens, positively and negatively. I don't know what to expect there. I don't know how much we can. I think you're right in terms of stinking out the place, but I don't know how we can afford to do that, because at some point you're going to need to score goals. And for a variety of reasons, we haven't been doing that at this moment in time. If I had to have somewhat more confidence, it'd be the one at the Emirates, just because, you know, all of that, the fans are there, the Emirates, you want to prove people wrong. I think we can win the game at the Emirates. I think we'd lose it. If we do lose it, I say if with hope, I think it goes south in the away leg.
Unfortunately, I'm with you. I think that we're in a position right now where the PSV game is all I'm concentrating on Champions League wise. I'm not looking towards Mbappe and Vidi coming to the Emirates. It doesn't interest me at all at the moment, right? I just
Can't
want to get
dream of
through
that yet,
that
man.
game if we can. Hopefully, we kind of find a way that we can score. Like you mentioned quite correctly, that people have kind of forgotten about. If Saka and Martinelli are to come back around April, that will obviously be good. We need to get through PSV to be in a position to actually play Real Madrid, right? So that's what we do need. Let me ask you finally, if we do finish the season trophyless, which most people predict, where are you at with the club? Do you want the owners removed? Do you want the board removed? Do you want both of them moved? Or do you look towards the manager being replaced by the ownership? And if they don't, you look towards the owners and say they're the problem. There's a section of the fan base that believe Arteta is going to have to stay because it's not fair on the injuries he's got. There's some that are saying he's got to go. Where are you at, bruv, right now?
I mean, I don't think he's going to stay just because of the injuries, and not fair. You're getting 15 mil a year. You clearly like the project that you're doing. You clearly believe that this is the club for you beyond the obvious, because you liked it so much. You did sign a new contract, as we've spoken about throughout this live stream, bro. He's got, you know, it goes beyond being a manager. He's got a lot of say in a lot of things. I don't think he's going to go. I don't think the Cronkies are going to go. So I've kind of checked out of that debate. But to humor you and ask you that question, I think the gloves are off. I think the owners need to go anyways. And I don't want to just sit here and blame the owners, because at the end of the day, they have given this guy money who is learning on the job. They've given him money. They've shown bravery to employ him. They've allowed him to make mistakes. He's allowed as many goalies and all these things as much as he wants. Yes, there's been incidences they haven't acted, but he does say they're the best owners in the world. If I know that's playing a bit of a game, but you do kind of say that. I just think we have to accept the owners aren't going anywhere. Arteta ain't going anywhere. But to answer your question, bro, everything's up for debate. I'm not going to cry if they stay. I'm not going to cry if they go. I don't believe anyone's position should be untouchable at this football club, whether that's the manager, select few of players who are an exception to that rule, or the board or whatever, because you're not showing me anything. If it was the flip side and me and you are happy as Larry and our cheeks are red, we're excited about everything, I'd want you lot to stay. I think we're at that point now where if nothing changes, nothing changes. Now, I don't know if Arteta has to change things, if the board have to change things, if we as a club have to change things, or we need to change owners, man, because we keep talking about fine margins. We're never on the right side. We keep talking about the depth of the squad. We're not addressing it. We keep talking about Lark and this and that. It feels like the same things are going on and on, man. So for me, I don't disagree with fans that just want everything ripped to the ground, really. And it's sad because I still think there's a foundation there. We're second. There's, you know, we've got a better record against the top six than we've ever had. I don't think we're fully crap, nor do I think Mikel Arteta is a bad manager. The question is getting over the line. You haven't done that. The club haven't done that. The players haven't done that. All options are on the table, Dan, man. Like, I do think people are too loyal to their own ideologies and Arsenal in their image versus the club. Right now, we can't say across all aspects of this football club that we're doing everything we can. You can lie about injuries, not even lie about injuries. You can moan about injuries and use that as a somewhat a drink for your pain. But we know across all aspects at this football club that not one person when May comes can say they've given it all. They put their best foot forward. That's why we're here, man. More's gonna stay, bro.
I agree with a lot of what you've said. I've had enough. I want them all out. I'm sick and tired of
I'm not
waiting.
against that.
And I kind of feel as well like there's an opportunity for us to, I think Chris might have said it yesterday, to actually look to someone new if they are staying. The owners and the manager are both staying, right? Let's just say it how it is.
Are they gonna
But
say
if
who
there
you're
was
gonna
an
get then?
opportunity,
Bearing in mind,
they say
Arteta
who can they get?
was a
Who can
coach
they get?
working under Pep, so no one was saying him. Who
Nobody
you
said
gonna
him.
get then?
Nobody said Arnie Slot when Klopp was going. So there are managers out there, right? And I think, look, Chris said it right. If you were going to replace the manager, it's the right time to do it because there's an overhaul needed. So therefore, you keep the
Good
players
point.
you want. And I still stand by it. The three most important signings for Arsenal, there's four actually, are Gabriel, Saliba, Saka, and a sporting director. They're the four. Yeah. They're the ones that we
I hear
need
it.
to get sorted. Yeah. Before we bring in the Isaks and Zubimendis and co, we need to get everything right there. Because if we get Isak in and they go, right, that's great. But Saka, Saliba, Gabriel, Martinelli are all not signing, and we still haven't got Edu's replacements. We're going to give it to Jason Ato. I'd rather be in the position where we've actually signed the players down, got a proper sporting director, and we go again. That's where I'd rather be at. So as much as I'm a fan of Isak, I want to see the club structured properly first, because it doesn't matter if you get Isak, you're not going to get the other positions and we'll be left short. And I can see it now, we're going to be left short in a couple of areas still, because we always are in the summer. We never ever finish that window and we go, bloody hell, we've got 22 players here that all literally have a first 11 and a second 11. We're good. Let's go.
That's what we
We
want.
have 19 players and they're all versatile. And that's the problem we've got, man. So that's where I'm at. But listen, DG, we're going to wrap it up there, my bro. Big up to you, man. Make sure you do me a favor. Hit the like button and subscribe, people. There's nearly 600 of you that's still in here. So please make sure you hit the likes and make sure you're following DG. His link's in the title.
Appreciate that.
Make sure we do that. What you got coming up, bro?
7 p.m. Our young players are playing in the FA Youth Cup, so I'm going to do a watch along with that. 9:15, I'm going to be live to just talk about Arsenal, kind of like what we spoke about. Just before this stream, I did a stream with Cecil. So yeah, man, there's bare content for you lot if you lot want to listen to my thoughts, people. Dan, it's always a pleasure, man. Go again next Friday. Hopefully, we're a bit more optimistic.
Mate, I hope so. I mean, at least we aren't playing this weekend, so we've got a break because obviously it's the FA Cup, so we don't have to worry too much about that. We can prepare for PSV, which is what we're speaking about next time. Listen, people, we're going to redirect you over to my boy Troop, so make sure you go show him some love. Go spam the chat with Dan Potts sent me, 12-man raid, whatever you want to do.
Someone say DG as well, man.
Yeah, man. DG and Dan Potts sent me. That's what you need to do. DG and Dan Potts sent me. Troops is on back again, so go show him some love. We're out of here, people. We'll see you next time. Up the Arsenal. Laters.
Come on. Peace.